Where did you find your spark from after all that adversity that you faced and you made your big move? What gave you your spark, do you think?
I don't know when or what. I don't know if there was a particular thing. Do you mean like spark as in terms of spark for comedy or just life spark?
Yeah, your life spark to think, I'm not going to put up with where I am in life.
So I think I could probably pin it a little bit better. So Leighton, my absolute lunatic of a child, just turned 10. He was probably my spark. So we had Leighton, everything dramatic in my life. We couldn't have children naturally, so he was a product of IVF. There's a lovely story that goes with that because he was our one and only functioning egg as well.
Wow.
So it was literally one egg in the entire barren basket of my womb. So when I became pregnant with Leighton, I'd also started a job. It was an organisation I'd previously worked for and had a brilliant experience. I'd gone back to be part of another project, and I was met with psycho boss from hell. And there was a lot of things going on around that. I could see it all playing out. You could see all the red flags. But I just decided, no, I'm just not going to engage with this because I need to protect this one and only egg because I might not get another chance. Mm-hmm. So I let it go quite a lot. And when he was born, because I didn't qualify for mat leave, I had to go back to work quite quickly. So I was back maybe 4 months after having him, which, you know, for most parents, that's utterly ridiculous. That's not time off with a new baby at all. It's not even enough time for your body to recover, never mind bouncing out a child. It's hard down there, you know. It's rough.
I'm very glad I adopted. That's all I'm going to say.
Well, that would have been our next route. Yeah, adoption would have been our next route, but managed to squeeze one out. So, that sounds like a poo, doesn't it?
Produce an offspring.
I haven't shit my child out. So, when I was back in work, alongside being extremely tired because I had a non-sleeping child, he didn't sleep all the way through until he was 3.5. So I honestly don't know how I didn't crack sooner.
Wow. I just feel exhausted thinking about that.
Yeah. I have an irreversible eye condition because of sleep deprivation. He is completely responsible for that, and he's going to know about that for the rest of his life.
So yeah, bring that up on his wedding day.
Yeah, 18th, 21st, wedding day. Yeah, it's all coming. Yeah, he can expect it all. So I then, when I'd had him and I went back to work, I felt like it was time to tackle the psycho boss from hell. But because I'd let a lot slide, and that happens in life, doesn't it? If you let certain behaviours go all the time, it then becomes more difficult to address those behaviours. And I thought, no, fuck it. This doesn't apply here.
No.
Because I have no choice but to be here because I need to earn money to pay bills and you know, have a life. And I'm not going to let one stupid little man, and he was a little man, he was only about 5'5", so he was a little man. He kind of reminded me of Lord Farquaad from Shrek. He had the head and the body. Yeah. It was a dick. Anyway, and a little Northern Irish dick as well. So I just decided I'd had enough. So I started documenting everything that he was doing. I wrote everything down. It's probably the most organised I've ever been in my life. And I think we had one particular occasion where he'd asked way too much of me. It wasn't possible to do. And I wasn't prepared to compromise. And it was at that point I thought, I've had enough. I'm going to throw all of this stuff over to the director. So I did. I've never done that before. I've never challenged. I mean, I've always been someone who kind of questions authority, always been a little bit like that, but never to the extent that I did. And unbeknownst to me at that moment, when I put my complaint in, and I named gross misconduct because of some of the things that he was doing, other people had also put complaints in the same week. There was, and there was this thought that there was some sort of collusion going on.
It was targeted attack kind of thing.
And it absolutely wasn't. I just don't know if a particular group of people have just all snapped at the same time and thought, fuck this shit, I've had enough.
Yeah.
But I put the complaint in and he was suspended that day.
Wow.
And, you know, when you just have this like,
Really?
that.
Yeah.
And I think if I hadn't have had Leighton, would I have allowed that to continue a bit longer? I think maybe I would have addressed it earlier, because it's, you know, coming back to that sort of addressing behaviour a bit quicker. When you see it coming up and kind of saying, no, I don't like that. No, that's not acceptable. Because there was me doing that as well, kind of calling out a few things, but not going too nuts. So when I put that complaint in and he got suspended, it was like having a massive warm wee. It was the best feeling. And then it wasn't, because it was quite terrifying. But I think without Leighton, I probably wouldn't have found... And I think from that experience, it has made me a completely different human being. I'm not the same person post psycho boss trauma.
Yeah.
Because I ended up becoming quite unwell as a result of that. And I learned a few months later what exactly that was. And it's kind of allowed me to put boundaries in, and like boundaries is probably the theme for me today.
Yeah.
Because now when I go to work, I have very clear boundaries, and I've had to learn. And my friend Nikki, my inspiration, she said, Heidi, have you tried something called Radical Candor? And I'm like, oh God, tell me what that is. And it's about caring personally about people, but challenging directly. And I needed to learn how to do that, because I was then fearful of going into workplaces, because the whole complaints procedure and being interviewed over and over and over again, people looking for holes in your story when there weren't any. Like, it was all very evident.
You're the wrongdoer.
Of course I am. Of course it's the woman.
Yeah.
Couldn't possibly be Lord Farquaad. No. So when I started listening to Radical Candor, I was like, yeah, this really resonates with me. And again, this all started from this one little boy, and I realized, you know what, I'm going to have to tell people to pack that shit in, because am I going to let my son get away with stuff like that? No.
Yeah.
And you know yourself, you're a mum, you're a parent. Like, if we don't call our children out on their bullshit, like, we're setting them up to fail when they're bigger.
Yeah. And I love the fact that generational thing that we'd started on, me, that you were saying, going all the way back in your history of your grandfather. And we are now the generation where we could stop that generational trauma and the generational habits. And we do owe it to sort of the future generation to do that, don't we? So, but you do need a bit of spark.
You do. You definitely need a bit of spark. It needs to come from somewhere. And you've got to be prepared for what might be uncomfortable. So I would consider myself to be quite a good manager. Like, I work really well with my team. I think we've got a lot of honesty. But a lot of that has come from using Radical Candor. Because say you were like doing something really annoying, like all the time in work, like it might be, I don't know, like tapping on a table, constantly whistling, but it really made me feel annoyed. Now, I had an incident in another place I worked before the pandemic, and the team of people that I'd inherited were inherently just do what the fuck they want when they wanted. And then I've arrived and gone, no, you're not, no.
Doing it like that.
No. But there was one person, and they did bring their own mental health shit to the table. When they were having a bad day, everybody got to know about it. Door slamming, fridge slamming, stomping. I would be deliberately left out of tea runs. You know, if someone's offering, but not tea.
Not tea. We've just established you don't drink tea. I've had the error of making Heidi tea this morning, because I asked her if she wanted a brew, and she actually wanted a coffee, but when you're northern, brew means tea, so I will never make that mistake again.
Don't offer me a tea, it won't go down well. Well, it won't go down.
No, it's gone down the sink.
It's gone. So, like, her behaviour was off the scale, but I don't think anybody had told her that's not acceptable in the workplace. And because that had gone on for so long, it was then accepted in the workplace that was how you dealt with her. You just got on with it.
Mary, she's always like that.
Yeah.
Let her go on with it.
Yeah, she's having a bad day. Just leave her to it. She'll be all right in a bit. And I just thought, no, this is having an uncomfortable effect on me because of the environment I'd come from. Working in a toxic work environment is not healthy. You've got to challenge it. And actually, it's my workplace. I have to spend more time there than I get to spend at home. So it damn well needs to be a decent environment for me. So I started listening to Radical Candor podcasts. And when I first sat down with this person and used Radical Candor, it went okay. It got better as time progressed. And I just sat them down and said, I'm not sure if you're aware, but I think it's really important for me to share this with you, that when you come into work and it's been a difficult morning for you and you are slamming doors and banging things and kind of being quite rude to people, it makes me feel really uncomfortable. I just wanted to kind of share that with you and see if you had any thoughts on that. I mean, she didn't take it particularly well the first time.
No.
And I think it was because of the way it was a bit obnoxious in the way that I delivered it, and I hadn't meant it to be. Because the practice of Radical Candor is about caring personally. And at that point, did I really care about that person personally? Probably not.
Yeah.
I got to know them better, and then I did.
Yeah.
But at that point, I just wanted their behaviour to stop because it was making me feel really uncomfortable. It was affecting other people, but they were quite happy. But it was bothering me. I didn't want to work in an environment like that. But it did get better. But, I think we have a responsibility as human beings to call people out. Like, hey, that thing that you're doing, it really fucking annoys me. Otherwise, you build up loads of resentment, don't you?
Yeah, and I think there's so much in that in offices that must be the case. It's probably tiny things sometimes. Like, did you always put the milk back in the fridge in the wrong direction? Do something really trivial. Or no, and it just builds up, but then it'll end up actually in a blazing row about something else completely unrelated. And I suppose it's the same in any relationship, partnership, that if you just actually say, it's really annoying me actually, like Joe says to me, can you just move your socks out of the lounge? Like, could you just move your socks and put your shoes in a straight line? Because we always joke if we ever get a divorce, it'll be because of my socks being left in random places. So, but that's like on a funny level, but it is that, that minutiae is something that builds up into something big. But the Radical Candor, it's not. It's a concept I've heard of, but not something I've looked into in great depth. So, might have to get someone on the podcast who can talk about that alongside your menopause lady. I think she'd be great.
Yeah. So. If you can get your hands on her.
Yeah.